Good morning and welcome to the Land Grant Seminar Series, Fall 2024. Today, I just want to remind you that this is all, as we do always, is a course that our MS students in Natural Resource Marine Science takes as a course. So this is, and we have 9 graduate students who are taking this semester this course, 5101. You can register for it, those of you who want to get some credits. We would like to have additional students. You'll teach you how to present your research and how to criticize also other researchers as well. This is the program for this fall semester. It's full, as you can see. And yes, we are in week 6 of the semester. And today we're going to have Robert Godfrey from NIFA to give us an update of his program. Next week, we're going to have student presentations. I think I misspoken in the previous session. So we'll talk about this. So students will be presenting their research proposals, short version, and you see the rest. With that, I would like to invite our Associate Dean for Research, Dr. Erdogan Memeli, to introduce our speaker for today. And after that, we can leave it after you want to say something. So
okay. All right, sounds good. Good morning, everybody. We are indeed honored to have Dr. Godfrey with us here. I've known Dr. Godfrey for a long time, read most of his papers, so are our students, graduate students. He received his bachelor's degree in animal science and industry at K-State, followed by his master's and PhD in reproductive physiology at TAMU here in animal science, and was a postdoc at USDA ARS in Clay Center, Nebraska, which is a major research center there. And he was the rhinoceros research coordinator at the Center for Reproduction for Endangered Wildlife Species in Cincinnati Zoo, a major zoo there. And then he had a long time tenure over at the University of Virgin Islands Agricultural Experiment Station on St. Croix. This is a very familiar thing for me because I heard about the research over there. He worked from assistant to full to director position there. His research focuses on reproductive physiology of St. Croix white hair sheep and Senapol cattle, as well as the impact of the environment of livestock, fertility, health, physiology, and production. So these are very critical for food security that our college also has a goal for. He was the assistant director and director of Egg Experiment Station, and he joined NIFA as a very critical role of division director for animal systems in the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability. This division, I'm sure he's going to elaborate a little bit more, is the one that manages the funding opportunities, external funding opportunities to support projects to promote animal production and health. So with that, please join me welcoming Dr. Godfrey. Okay.
thank you. Appreciate it. Look, so the F word is very famous here. Last week we have 3 Fs.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and glad to be here. I was here last spring, I think it was, for the Disaster Response Conference.
Yeah.
I wasn't scheduled to be here. We had some other NIFA folks here, but I live just down the road in Spring, Texas, so 35 miles away. So I hopped over for a couple of days and got to see some of your facilities and meet with you then as well. But it's good to come back, and going to give you an update on what's going on with NIFA. Our overall with the agency, and then some specifics about my division, animal systems. I'm not being dismissive of the plant sciences, just, I don't know as much about them. Because I'm an animal scientist. You know, my animals eat your plants.
They taste.
So we need each other. But I have to say, we have a non-discrimination statement from USDA. If you feel that you've been discriminated against or feel there's any issues with the presentation or with NIFA, you can contact addresses and the links on this slide here. I will be leaving a PDF version of my slide with you so you can share it with the group as well.
Okay, thanks.
So it'll have all the links in there. They're all hot links, so they can utilize that as
We'll
well.
put that in the college's intranet where you log in and access a whole bunch of resources that money helped us manage those.
Just going to start with an overview of NIFA. It's, again, National Institute of Food and Agriculture. It's the extramural science funding agency within USDA's Research, Education, and Economics Mission Area. We refer to that as REE. Government is full of acronyms. I'm still learning a lot. I need a dictionary sometimes. But we invest and support initiatives that ensure the long-term viability of agriculture within the U.S. It provides funding and strategic leadership for programs to really encourage groundbreaking discoveries in ag-related sciences. And that agriculture is a wide net. Everybody knows that. So there's a lot of things that can fall under that. We deal with technology and the people to put these things into practice. How is NIFA structured? You know, the typical org chart. We've got our director, Dr. Manjit Misra. He's relatively new. I haven't had a chance to meet him personally, but he goes around. He's been traveling a lot, going around to different places around the country. And then we've got under Dr. Dion Toombs, the Associate Director for Programs. We've got the 4 Science Institutes. And I am located in the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability. Cal Calovacharla is the Deputy Director. He's got a plant science background, but I don't hold that against him too much. But we have agriculture systems, deals with a lot of technology, some engineering aspects of agriculture. Animal systems, which is my division, where we deal with animal production and protection. And plant system is split out into production and protection, 2 different divisions within the Institute. And they do just what their title says. One deals more with the production programs related to plants, and the other deals more with protection. And we have some cross-cutting programs that cross boundaries within institutes and across institutes as well. And I'll get into some of those a little later on. The Science Institutes, we've got Institute of Bioenergy, Climate and Environment. They have the Division of Bioenergy, Environmental Sciences, Global Climate Change. And their titles are pretty descriptive of the areas they focus on. But again, there is some cross-cutting areas and a lot of different ways to access some of these depending on what discipline you're actually interested in. IFPS, again, the institute that my division is housed in, we've got agricultural systems, animal systems, and plant production and protection. The Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition has food safety and nutrition, 2 different divisions. It's interesting because when we get people contacting us about submitting proposals of, say, for like meat science, you would think they'd fit in the animal systems, but they really don't. Once it's post-harvest, it belongs in, it fits better in food safety and nutrition because they can deal with things there. But we do support programs or projects within the animal systems of, pre-harvest treatments to see the impact on post-harvest carcass quality and things like that. So there's a lot of discussions and a lot of wiggle room, and we can usually find a home for every proposal. Somebody has a project, if it's related to agriculture, animals, and plants, we can find a place for them in one of our divisions. So we work with you contact us, we'll work with you to find the best fit for your proposals. The Institute of Youth, Family, and Community, they deal with community and education, family and consumer services, and 4-H. 4-H is a very big deal. It's a big program, and they do a lot of work with the 4-H programs around the country. Then we have science liaisons as well. When NIFA relocated to Kansas City, and then they left a small core group in DC, they set up these national science liaison teams to have that science contact in the DC area. So they've got one for 4-H community development, one for food safety, one for AFRI, the large grant program, and animal health and production. That's Mark Mirando. He worked he's kind of like a split appointment, part-time in my position, part-time supporting the AFRI program. So he does a lot of different things. He's like one of my go-to guys in my division when I ask questions. Then the plant protection and organic farming is another liaison, environmental natural resources and climate change. Now, depending on the administration, some of these areas could change depending on what the government, the White House administration priorities are, filters down into USDA, but we'll see what happens in 5 weeks, is it? Our NIFA programs, we cover a lot of different things. You can see this list here. You can find a home anywhere. You know, we have it between advanced technologies, education, plants and animals, even some international activities, although we tend to focus on U.S. agriculture. We do have some international collaboration efforts which come in handy and are very interesting. Some human sciences as far as family and community well-being, natural resources, some business. We have some small business innovative research programs, SBIR, that we support in various disciplines as well. So there's a lot of different things we cover within NIFA. I mentioned strategic goals and plans. NIFA has a strategic plan through 2026. And you can see the goals listed there. And at the bottom, there's a link to the document which you can download. And once I share that PDF, all these links will be hot links in there. So you'll be able to look at these documents as well. Well, that was the USDA strategic goal. Sorry, excuse me. NIFA, oops, wrong way. NIFA strategic plan, we kind of follow along with the USDA goals, maybe a little narrower focus, a little more specific to NIFA. You know, one of the big things is building agricultural workforce. We have several programs. We have a whole RFA for workforce development with pre and postdoctoral scholarships in there. So we've got these goals and they mirror and are connected to the USDA goals. And then all of our programs can address one or more of these objectives as well in the strategic plan. We support a lot of different types of projects. We have research projects, we have education projects, we have extension projects. Then we have integrated projects, which combines at least 2 of the 3 above it. So, and some programs will only support research, some will support only education, some will support only integrated projects. So you have to read the RFA to find out where the best fit is and make sure you have the activity that you're trying to apply for. And the grant types, we have a standard grant. We have a strengthening grant, which helps new scientists, young faculty, equipment grants, things like that. We support conference grants. If you want to, organize a conference, you can submit a proposal to get funding for that. And they come in real handy. They're not big bucks. They're like $50,000, but you can do a conference for fairly cheap, especially if you tie it to a big scientific conference. You're just having like a special conference or something. And then the phase grants, again, those are specific for minority serving institutes, EPSCoR states, things like that. So we take that into account when we do our reviews and they get consideration for that. The AFRI program, the Agriculture and Food Research Initiative, has 3 main RFAs, or 4, sorry. The Sustainable Ag Systems, which is a big grant program. We were just referred to it as SAS. And that always confused me when I first joined NIFA, because to me, SAS was the statistical software. So I said, you're funding that? Yeah. But it does really big these are $10 million proposals that they fund. They're interdisciplinary, have very broad approaches and aspects to them. I've sat in on some of the review panels and the PD meetings for these, and they're big projects, but some are very interesting. And just the effort to organize something on that scale is pretty impressive. The Foundational and Applied Science Program, they refer to as FAST, that's where you're going to find the meat and potatoes of the animal and plant health production, the education, different programs. The Education and Workforce Development has its own RFA, again, for the pre and postdoctoral fellowships and some of the other education programs, supporting undergraduate students in research activities as well. And then we have several interagency programs. We work with NIH, NSF, even some international places to not necessarily joint funding, but we share funding for a proposal. It'll be like for some things, they'll be funded by one of the foreign country agencies, and we'll provide funding as well for the US side of it, and they develop a collaboration that way. In the foundational applied science, again, we have these priority areas: the plant health and production and products, animal health production and products, food safety, nutrition and health, bioenergy, natural resources and environment, ag systems and technology. That's the geeky stuff. Some of that stuff is really cool. You know, automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, some of the different things. Ag economics and rural communities, and the cross-cutting programs, they will cross these different areas and have requirements to address different areas. Just a general description of the AFRI programs for specifically for a research project. You can have a standard grant, a conference grant, and also the phase grants. So you got new investigator, the strengthening of grants. You got strengthening standards, seed, new investigator, seed, strengthening conference, equipment, sabbatical, a lot of different categories. You can read all about these in the RFA. And when you do have questions, because I know you will, because I still do, contact the listed NPL. They know these programs. That's what their job is, and they know these very well, and they offer very good guidance. Before I moved to NIFA, I was trying to develop a project with our government veterinarian in the Virgin Islands when I was still in St. Croix, and I didn't know where it would fit. So I called two of the NPLs for the animal health programs and talked to them, and we got a lot of good information where to send that grant. But then I got hired by NIFA, so I never could turn in the grant. Now I'm their boss. Life is funny sometimes. And the grants, they can go up to 60 months. You know, that's a maximum. They don't have to, but you can do, and different grants have different time limits. The standard grant is 650,000. Again, we know that a lot of time that's not enough, but it's what we are authorized and what our funding levels are. Seed grants, you get $300,000 for a project for up to 2 years. That helps you get some preliminary data to help apply for a full grant. Some of the cross-cutting programs that I referred to earlier, we have agriculture microbiomes and plant systems, critical agriculture care, research and extension, data science or food and agriculture systems. They deal with a lot of data management and big data sets. Interdisciplinary engagement in animal systems. That's managed in the animal systems division, but they have people from other parts of the agency working with it. But that's where they do a lot of the precision agriculture, folks, specifically precision livestock farming. That's where a lot of those projects come in. They can be up to $1 million. Some of those are even really neat with the technology they're developing for automated systems and monitoring environment and monitoring the animal through all this type of new technology that's out there. I did a little bit of it when I was still doing research with body temperature measurements, but they're doing stuff that's way beyond what I was even thinking about back then. I kind of go, man, I wish I was still doing that. But that's a big program. Agriculture biosecurity, again, that one's shared between plants and animals. One of the veterinarian NPLs in my program manages that, along with a PhD in the plant production system or protection, sorry. They deal with basically biosecurity of animals and plants, whether it's disease related, transfer, international shipment, anything related to biosecurity, keeping our food systems safe. We have the climate hubs partnerships. That's where they have these regional climate hubs, and they work with obviously climate change and the impact of that. Commodity board co-funding. If a commodity has an interest in a specific topic, they can submit an application to generate an RFA to address that. They put in some money, NIFA puts in some money, and then we seek applications specifically for that commodity and that issue. And they can be any species, plant or animal. And like we've got, I think, 6 or 7 maybe this year that we're working on. So that's a nice partnership with the industry where they provide some of the money, then NIFA has some of the money in the game as well. Then this A1712, the rapid response to extreme weather events. I kind of wish they had that when I was still in the Virgin Islands dealing with hurricanes more directly. But that, after Hurricane Helene, hit the Southeast, I sent emails to people I know in North Carolina and Florida that are at the universities there, said, y'all don't look into this program. It's not to help rebuild. but it helps you do mainly it seems like extension and education work for preparing for the next or evaluating the impacts of these weather events. We've had applications for the fires out west. They're looking at the impact of the smoke on livestock. Interesting concept. So, that program is unique. It has an open submission. Anytime there's a disaster, you have a certain amount of time after that disaster to submit a letter of intent and then submit your application. They review them, they turn them around quickly because we know this is again, rapid response. We're trying to live up to that name. So they get turned around really quick. The money gets back out the door and they get to the people who want it. So it's an interesting program. I served on some of the development of it when I first came on board because of my experience with surviving hurricanes in the islands, which is very different than surviving one in the States. Trust me. You have the resources here to get to you quicker. Down there, if the airport's shut down and the ports are shut down, you're out of luck for a long time. So, and just kind of on another note with economics, with the longshoremen strike on the East Coast, my first thought was people in the islands are going to be suffering. Gerard knows the amount of food and things that are imported to the islands throughout the whole Caribbean. With the shipping lane shut down, it's not going to be good. For the ideas program, just going to highlight that one again, because that's that, precision livestock farming, high tech, it's $1 million projects and it's got to be integrated. So you have research, extension, and education, 2 of the 3. And you got the different types of grants. It can go for 5 years, but again, it's $1 million for the total grant. That's more than the standard 650,000. And you still have, seed grants, and you still can do conference grants and equipment grants associated with it. And there's a conference, International Precision Livestock Farming, or Precision Livestock Farming Association, I think is, but they meet every other year in the US. In the between years, they meet internationally. We've always had a conference grant from them, and also our PD meeting is usually held there because most of the PDs are going to be at that meeting anyway. So it's a good place to share that information. But I like this program. It impresses me the innovation and the types of projects people submit to these. Even the ones that don't get funded are still pretty impressive. If we had more money, we'd be able to fund them all. Within NIFA, again, we've got the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability, where I live, basically. And we deal with, again, the different types of areas across food production is what our role is. Again, a lot of our stuff is pre-harvest, especially in the animal systems division. I always told people, we get them to the slaughterhouse door. And then what happens after that is food safety, food science, some of those things. But we have a lot, broad areas that we address, farms, ranches, forestry, aquaculture is in the Animal Systems Division, Institute of Food Production and Sustainability. We have 1 NPL, anything related to fish goes to him, so he gets a lot of work. The Animal Systems Division, again, we're drilling down a little further level. We deal with animal products, animal production, and animal protection. We have we've got areas on animal disease, animal reproduction, nutrition, growth, and lactation, one of the program areas. Aquaculture, again, anything to do with any of the aquaculture, which is captive farm-raised fish, not wild-caught fish, but anything that's farm-raised, captive-raised fish. And also biosecurity, and we deal with, that's through that A1181, the biosecurity with disease outbreaks. We just got some funding from APHIS with the high-path avian influenza, which is a very big issue right now because it's crossed into livestock besides poultry. So we got some money from APHIS, and we modified the request to RFA to say we have this extra funding, we want to specifically fund some of those projects. We got over 40 proposals to 2 different programs, our animal diseases program and animal biosecurity program. So we're going to be able to get that money out and address that issue. And we've talked about, it's our version of the rapid response kind of really with this issue that's out there, and the funding was made available. So we're able to work it into 1 of 2 of our programs. Our division, it's one of the larger divisions in the Institute, and in NIFA, we've got 1 division director, that'd be me, 9 program leaders, and 1 who also serves as a national science liaison. They're PhD and/or DVMs. We've got a program coordinator, 6 program specialists that help support the programs and work with the NPLs, 2 program assistants that work across the whole division. And right now we have 2 1890 scholars working in our division, one from North Carolina A&T and one from Fort Valley State. They work with us during the summers. We don't want them to work during the fall and spring semesters because we want them to focus on going to school, taking their classes, doing that. But they work with us during the summer full time. And, they get paid for it. And, they have a government computer, government phone, all that stuff. And they work with the division and even outside the division. And I have mixed emotions about them. They both, the 2 students we have now are really good. They express some interest in vet school. And I say, well, working at NIFA ain't going to get you into vet school. But some of them, okay, if they want to go through into a career in government work within the agriculture system, they can work at NIFA, they can work at ARS, APHIS, FSIS, a lot of different areas. So we train them to that. And, they, depending on when they start, they can be with us for 3 or 4 summers too. So they get a lot of experience, a lot of hands-on. One of my NPLs, Camilla Grant, has taken over kind of mentoring the students. And she's done a really good job with it. Has a meet with a lot of different NPL, different programs. She even had some folks from Tuskegee help her do some online surgical procedure, suturing training. So she ordered some fake skin and sent it to the students so they could work online with the instructor from Tuskegee and practice suturing. So she's giving them all sorts of novel experiences. They're learning about how NIFA works, our systems, our programs, working with the clerical side of the job, which isn't the most exciting sometimes, but they're learning the government system. So it's kind of interesting. Yes.
That is great to hear. And Dr. Horace Hodge here is our liaison.
Okay.
And, we have 89 scholars program, Dr. Parks. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping to have Purview and scholars there too.
Yep.
By the way, Dr. Grant is my former PhD student from Mississippi State. So I'm honored to see our students getting national.
And I don't hold that against her,
So- It's great
but
to
she
see
did
that.
tell me to give you her regards.
Great.
Yes.
We actually do have 3 students that are supported by NIFA.
Right.
Because of their major, so that they're able to grant money.
Yeah.
The other was in food.
Yep.
Food science, and I think the other one is in the nutrition science.
Yeah. Yeah, they try and place the students with, connected to their major and their interests. So yeah, so they're scattered throughout the agency. Again, the AFRI programs that we manage in our division, the animal breeding, genetics and genome, animal reproduction, which is near and dear to my heart because that's my background, reproductive physiology, diseases of agriculture animals. That's one of our biggest programs. We have 2 NPLs that work on that program because they receive sometimes 150 grants each cycle. So they have to manage them. Animal nutrition and growth and lactation. That seems a rather broad casting net, but it covers a lot of different things, and welfare and well-being of agriculture animals. Actually, Camilla is the lead NPL on that one, as well as Repro now. We switched her and Mark out so she can phase in. She's doing really good with both of them too. So, but so that deals with, the AFRI competitive grants that we support. We also have several cross-cutting programs that live fully or partially within the division. Ag biosecurity. We deal with the animal side of that, of disease outbreaks and management of those issues. The IDEA system, again, the precision livestock farming, that's 100% within the division. The climate hubs, we have participation in that and a role in that because it does affect animal agriculture. And, I always say, well, animals are affected by the climate. Yeah, but they're also affecting the climate too. So, you have to walk that line. You live on both sides of that fence. The commodity board co-funding topics, if there's a livestock commodity, we manage that. And again, we also have support for the rapid response to the extreme weather events. Michelle Colby, one of our DVMs, is representing us on that project. The small business innovative research programs, we have 2 that are managed in animal systems. The aquaculture, and these programs, and the animal production and protection deals with animal production and animal health, basically. But these are for industry type projects, not necessarily research, but they're development projects to help develop a product or a process or something to support these types of industries. I remember years ago, I served as a reviewer for a couple of these where people were they were looking at devices to help detect estrus in cattle. And so I reviewed a couple of the proposals on that. And it was kind of interesting technology. Back then, it was very simple compared to what they can do now. We also have capacity programs, which are the formula, also referred to the formula funds. We manage the animal health and disease research capacity funds. Unfortunately, the 1890s aren't eligible for those, but they do live in our division. We have two programs to support veterinarians, and they're not, well, one of them is just a loan repayment. If it's the veterinarians in a private practice, or they can be a private or a public practice. And by public, we mean government type practice. But if they're trying to repay their student loan and their state animal health official identifies an area in that state that has a shortage of veterinarian for livestock, food animal production, not a dog and cat, although they can be a mixed practice, but we support, unlike Springfield, we're not eating the dogs and cats. But it's focused on the food animal production in the state. The state animal health official identifies a shortage area where they need extra veterinary assistance. So they send them to us, we post them, and people apply to serve in those areas. And for the years of service, they get funding to help pay off their veterinary student loans. And it's an interesting program because it's, like I said, it's just a loan repayment program. So it's managed very differently from research. When I first got there, one of the first people I talked to in the division was the program coordinator who works with this program. And I told, well, tell me about this program, because I knew of it, but I didn't know about it. And so she said, yeah, we get the emails, applications by email. I go, what? They didn't have anything like grants.gov where you submit through a portal. They're receiving applications with personal identifying information and through email. I go, well, that's not secure. So we've since, we're trying to get it into the new system NIF is going to use, but for now we use some other methods to help protect that information. And it's a very administratively work-heavy program, but it does a lot of good. We fund this past year, we funded 120 recipients, and we get a lot more applications, but then they have to serve in those shortage areas to provide veterinary support in those areas that are identified in their state. And some states have multiple areas too, so it just all depends. And then we have the Veterinary Services Grant Program. This is kind of a mix. There's one portion of it that supports education and training. These usually go to vet schools and with extension components, stuff where they either offer special training and outreach to veterinarians or the students. One of them was very interesting. It was developing a course on bee health, with the more increased popularity of raising bees as pollinators and for the honey. They know nothing about managing the health of those little critters. So they were developing courses to train veterinarians how to manage and work with their clients that were raising bees. I thought that was pretty innovative and really addressed a topic that needed addressing. And there's another part of that program, the Rural Practice Enhancement, where private practices, clinicians can apply for these grants. They can use that to buy equipment to help enhance their practice. It could be an ultrasound machine, could be a pickup truck with the insert in the back for carrying all their supplies, could be a portable scale, squeeze chute, whatever they need to enhance their practice and their capacity. And they tie those to the shortage areas as well, but still it's basically, it's kind of an equipment program where they help support specific equipment for the veterinarians. And then in aquaculture, we've got the SBIR, the 8.7, that's the aquaculture program in the small business innovative research. They've got aquaculture special research grants, and they run the RFA. They publish a new RFA every other year. They'll fund some of the proposals in the first year, then the next year they'll fund more proposals with the new allocation of funding. But he only does one RFA, one panel, and it works out pretty good. They're smaller grants. I think they're only like 250,000. So it's not like the big AFRI grants, but they're focused on specifically aquaculture. So they have a home there. Then we also support funding for the regional aquaculture centers. There's 4 around the country: the Southern, Western, North Central, and Southern. There's 4 of them. But I think and I think the southern one is in Mississippi, last I remember. And so we manage those, and those get funding. And it's a directed RFA, so we get the money directly to them, then they give subawards out within their region to industry, universities that are addressing issues for the priority in their region, because the country's so big and there's a lot of different ways things need to be done in priority areas. So this way we get the money addressing the local issues instead of trying a big, broad sweep. It's like when I was still living in the Virgin Islands applying for grants, we would get bad reviews because they would say, well, papaya, that's not an important crop. Yeah, it's not corn and soybean, but it's important in the islands.
That's right.
So you have to, sometimes, they say, think locally. Yeah, you have to do that in a lot of cases now. But some of these, they address the local issues within aquaculture. This is just a summary showing the programs, the NPL names, who's in charge, the funding level we've had within FY24, and then the awards made and the success rate. We try and keep the success rate between 15 to 20%. Sometimes different programs will be a brief increase or decrease due to changes in funding, or if all of a sudden the success rate is high in a program, then okay, everybody tries to submit to that, and then I'll knock it down the next year. So it's a moving target. We try and keep it, close. Some of these are a little bit lower, like that antimicrobial resistance. That's a very narrow focus project. It doesn't have, and it's not, Kathy Bjork there, she's in my division. She helps manage that, but that's not really run in my division. I don't have money in that one, so. But the rest of them, you can see the success rate, you've got a good chance. One way to increase your chances of getting a successful proposal, serve on the panel. Contact the NPL for the individual program areas. Tell them you're interested in serving on the panel. You have to also go into the PRS system and enter your information there, but we don't always look in there. A lot of our panels are set up by the NPL, the panel manager. If you served on the panel previously, if they know you in the discipline, that they can find you in the journals, you've published in a specific area. So yeah, reach out to the NPLs. They're all there to be talked to. They will provide you the information and support you need. And, I helped we recruited a panelist at the animal science meetings in Calgary this summer, cornered her over lunch, but she was interested in young faculty. It's a really good experience. Looks good on your resume. And also it helps you learn how to write good grants, because you see what good grants look like. You see what bad grants look like too. So you get to see, and you get to learn how the funding decisions are made and how the whole review process works. Gives you a better idea, so you can, skip over some of the pitfalls and problems that people may have. We're always recruiting for panelists, so, don't be shy. We've got some non-AFRI programs as well. The FARAD, the Food Animal Residue Avoidance Database. It's a national program where they monitor residues in food, and we provide funding for that. The NAHL, National Animal Health Laboratory Network, they deal a lot with testing of samples and dealing with outbreaks of animal diseases. There's laboratories designated around the country, different levels and different levels of support, but they deal with, they deal with managing animal disease detection and running a lot of the tests. Again, the regional aquaculture centers I mentioned, the special research grants, and the 2 veterinary support programs. Again, these are all non-AFRI. They're discretionary. They have their own lines in the federal budget. They could go up, down, or away, depending on what Congress feels like. And I can't say anything about that. Helpful tips. I threw some of these in there. Reach out to the NIFA staff. That's what we're there for. If you don't know who to reach out to me. I will direct you to the right place, because I don't know a lot of this stuff, but I can tell you who does. That's always been my motto. I may not know it all, but I know where to find out. And I can steer you to the right people depending what your interests are. And it could be a phone, email. We can set up meetings either at a conference or a PD meeting, or just Zoom calls, Teams calls, whatever. Sign up at that link for NIFA updates. You'll get an email from NIFA once a week. It's not going to fill your box, but it gives you updates on what's going on in NIFA, tells you what happened, what's been happening, and what programs coming up and some important dates, especially RFA dates and things like that. Sign up to serve on the review panel. There's information at those links about the training you have to go through. It's all online. It's not that tough. How to become a panelist and go to PRS system, log in, enter your information, set up your account. And then with the AFRI and non-AFRI competitive RFAs, they're all at that link there, so you can find the RFAs. You know, I feel bad, but a lot of times people ask me a question, I go, it's in the RFA. And that way, you know, I do that for two reasons, because sometimes I don't always have the details right on the tip of my tongue, but also if it's in the RFA, that's what we go by. That's our gospel. That's our Bible. If it's in the RFA, that's what needs to be done as far as what to submit, how to submit it, and what areas we're looking at addressing. Sometimes you get to talking to people and you can start saying stuff that's not quite right, and they get misled, and all of a sudden it could, you know, end up a bad result for them. So you know, RFA is really where things are. Different funding opportunities within NIFA at that link. A flow chart about how the competitive grants work, how they're submitted, evaluated, reviewed, and approved, and then the financial part of it as well. Different grant resources. There's grant training. NIFA does have some pre-recorded webinars and activities for how to write a grant. They have, I call it the road show. They've gone around to some different institutions or conglomerates of institutions doing these grant writing workshops and tell people how to write good grants and what they need to know. The NIFA policy guide, that's kind of important sometimes to find out just what the policies are dealing with our grants. Indirect cost, you know, every PI's nightmare, but every administrator's, you know, cash cow. You know, but it talks about the different ways it's calculated, what programs require it, what don't, if you try and request a waiver, different things like that. How to submit your grant, a lot of instructions on that next link. And information on awarded grants. If you want to see what's been awarded, you can go see what projects, you know, you might get some ideas or get a contact, reach out to somebody for future collaboration, see what was funded and what they've been doing. If it's similar to what you're interested in, you can work with them. So there's a lot of different resources out there. What I've always told people, even when I was at the university, is, you know, every decision we make in NIFA or university administrator involves people. And that's what, whether it's allocating resources of facilities, money, support staff, it still involves people. It comes down to people. And we try and keep that in mind in NIFA. I know I do with our division. You know, the people that work with me, you know, we deal with that. And then the people who apply for grants, we're dealing with people. It's not just a number or an email address. And we have some interesting exchanges with people at times over different, people are very passionate, which I understand completely. And so but it comes down to we're dealing with people, and we have to, you know, be respectful of what they're asking, and we have to be honest with what we're able to provide them as well. So, but at this point, I'll open the floor up to any questions you may have, or hopefully I'll be able to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you. I think before we go to questions, I would like to give the microphone to the dean. He has something to say.
Thank you, Dr. Ferris, and thank you, Dr. Godfrey. Phenomenal presentation. So gives me an opportunity. This is going back in time, almost a 25-year reunion with Dr. Godfrey. So how did I get to the Virgin Islands? Well, I took advantage of a sabbatical program back when I was in my former institution. And this is one of the best kept secrets of academia. It is a tremendous benefit. It's an opportunity to kind of reboot, establish new relationships. And in this case, I applied for and went to the Virgin Islands. So it's a whole semester, full salary, or you can go a whole year with half a salary. And the institution, the University of the Virgin Islands at St. Croix, provided my living expenses. So it was a win-win. Anyway, 25 years ago, when I was looking at my first hurricane called Hurricane Lenny. And so they call this wrong way Lenny, because typically hurricanes go east to west. This one went east to west, went over the islands, turned around and went west to east over the islands again. And here I was with my video camera holding onto a post and taking pictures, you know, because that's my first hurricane. I didn't know I could get swept away, but it was fun at the time. Anyway, this led to a phenomenal collaboration. Dr. Godfrey and I worked on what ended up being a monograph on hair sheep production islands. So I, of course, was the economist on the team, animal scientist. We had a agronomist and other collaborators. So it's been a very robust, sought after publication. And so it led to that. It led to a book that I edited back in the day. I was an associate professor. And so it sparked my interest in sustainable development because of what Dr. Godfrey said. Nowhere are you find yourself more resilient in the mercy of nature than on an island, and so that's gives you a lot of time to think. And so my interest in sustainability was sparked. So next thing you know, I wrote a book, a few journal articles. I used this for my promotion to professor. And then the rest of this is history, more books, more grants, and more sabbaticals, and USVI, Puerto Rico, Mexico, other areas. And I also learned Spanish in the process. So it was kind of a win-win-win, got postdocs, got a lot of grant funding and collaboration. So if at all possible, pursue these sabbatical opportunities, pursue networking opportunities, because at the end of the day, it's not too difficult to apply, whether it is a Fulbright program or a sabbatical program. And I must say, it's something that's not on Dr. Godfrey's resume. He's an avid lobster, what's the word, fisherman?
Scuba diver.
A scuba diver. So he always had the most impressive collection of lobster in his freezer back in the Virgin Islands. So he was with his dog, whichever beach I happened to find myself, because the Virgin Islands is not that large, it's beach with an easy access.
Yep.
So he was always there with his dog hunting or fishing for lobsters. And I didn't have the guts to strap a heavy tank onto my back and dive the end of the ocean. I did do some snorkeling, but that was it. So a phenomenal, 25-year reunion. We're
Yep.
both in Texas now, and
Yeah.
we survived several hurricanes. So again, pleasure, sir.
Well, thank you, Gerard. And that document, that report we did on the hair sheep management, that got me the most credit at the institution than all the scientific publications I did, because it was a outreach-based document. The university thought that was great. I still had, 50 journal articles, but you're supposed to do that. Well, I'm not supposed to do extension. I had a research appointment, but I've had a lot of requests for that. I took that document when I was working on a project with some colleagues at the University of Hawaii on grazing management and pasture development in the Pacific Insular areas. That document went with me over there. I shared it with everybody over there, gave them some basis to work, they could adapt it. Like I said, Dr. D'Souza did the economic aspects of it, but you can change those numbers in the tables and make it fit your local conditions. And so, that was a very interesting project, and it got a lot of ground covered and a lot of traction. And I still have my PDF copy, but the hard copies are long gone.
Well, I mean, the time stories about islands is a very touchy subject. So it's a very good, also brings lots of good memories. So I think we'll open the floor here for additional questions or comments for Dr. Godfrey's presentation. We have a question here or a comment.
Okay. My name is Ashley. I had a question about the grants. Just what kind of organizations are being awarded the grants? Is it like private companies or educational institutions?
It depends. And, I'm going to go back to my thing. It says in the RFA who is eligible. Most cases, universities, land grant universities, the 1890s, 1862s, the tribal schools, colleges that offer a degree in agriculture, they may not be, there are non-land grant ag schools. Some are specific to certain types of institutions. Some are very broad. Almost anybody and everybody is eligible. The SBIR program, that's not necessarily for industry or university research, but universities can be involved in it for developing a product or a process. So it's that's kind of a mixed bag. But the AFRI program, any university is going to be eligible, even non-land grant, not ag schools, as long as the project addresses an agriculture issue. We get people submitting projects on mice and rats, and that's not a food animal in this country, so we're not. They say, but it's a model for cow. Well, yeah, so colleges, universities, state ag departments, other government agencies, ARS is eligible. We get a lot of applications from ARS. So But in the RFA, it shows a broad range of it for each program and specifics for some, but we're trying to be more inclusive and less restrictive on a lot of our applications so we can get as many people to apply as possible and
Yeah.
support as many.
And I was just wondering specifically about like a city and like municipalities, like do they get awarded grants, cities?
I'd have to, again, direct you to the RFA if they list like state governments and municipalities specifically. I don't know if they do. Some of the education grants might, because they focus on K through 12 type things. But I can't say that for sure with some of the research activities. So, but that, again, if you get the RFA and there's a whole, in the table of contents, there's a line that says eligibility. You go to that page and it lists, and it's usually a fairly extensive, but I really can't remember seeing anything coming from a municipality like that, or, a town or something like that. Now, that rapid response to extreme weather events, they might be able to put one together for that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other question? Comments?
While you're thinking of, colleagues, your question, Dr. Godfrey, could you elaborate a little bit more about professional development, the stellar academic, researcher, extension, teacher, career success? What do you have to share?
Take advantage of every opportunity. That's what I did. In one presentation I shows a map of where I went from when I left. I grew up in New Jersey, within spitting distance of New York City. I'm not a farm kid. My dad's family had dairy farms in New York State. That was my exposure to animals, and that's how I got interested in it. But I went from New Jersey to Kansas State, to Texas A&M, to Nebraska, to Ohio to play with rhinoceros, which is weird. Back to Texas A&M, working at the vet school, doing research with rat tissue culture, then to the St. Croix. But while I was in St. Croix, I had opportunities. I went to Nigeria, Bangladesh, most of the Pacific Islands, several countries in Central America, several Caribbean islands as well. So you take advantage of opportunities. And if it comes, like, it was Joe Garagiola, which many of you probably don't even know who that is, said, you come to a fork in the road, take it. So yeah, if there's an opportunity, look at it. Don't just totally blow it off, but take a look at it. If you can make it work, take advantage of it. Some of these things I didn't plan on, they just happened, but they led to helping my career. My international experience, my 29 years living in the Virgin Islands. When I got hired by NIFA, they took advantage of that skill set and that capacity for dealing with limited resources, food insecurity issues. Like I said, that longshoreman strike is going to impact the Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands big time now. So just take advantage of opportunities. And also, like I said, remember, every decision you make is going to affect people. You could be that people, or it could be other people. If you're in any kind of leadership role, any decision you make is impacting people. It may not seem like it if you're saying, well, we can buy a tractor. Well, that's going to impact somebody's career if they're able to use that tractor to support their research, manage their fields. So everything involves people, but you always but sometimes you have to make tough decisions too. And my philosophy is always, when there's a big decision to be made, I discuss it with the people that are going to be impacted by it. I'll bring them in, I'll get everybody's opinions, we'll talk it over, we'll come to a final decision where it may not be in total agreement, but everybody can live with it. You got to make compromises. But then the other thing is, don't be what I call administratively paralyzed. Pull the trigger, make that decision. You can gather all the information and just sit on it, and that doesn't do anybody any good. But you got to make that decision and move on it, whatever action that is. And it could be something as minor as, figuring out a holiday schedule to keep the program operating. Or it could be something big like developing a new program, things like that. So, but, gather information, get input from everybody involved. From, in our system at the Virgin Islands, we had people that the agriculture aides, they did a lot of the field work, supported the farms, kept things running. And we had research assistants and the faculty. You bring in everybody because it's going to affect everybody. And that way everybody feels included, and it's better for morale, and they appreciate it. I remember after Hurricane Maria, 2017, I was off island, got stuck off island. when it hit, I couldn't get back to St. Croix for like 2.5 weeks. I was up in New Jersey, so I stayed in my folks' house, no big deal. But it took me 2.5 weeks before I could get back to St. Croix. But once I got there, did an assessment of the damage. I was out there with everybody. We were clearing up debris through the end of December. I was out there with them every day. I just put the administrative stuff on hold or did it at night. But then we were just clearing debris and trying to keep the experiment station up and running again. And, I wasn't doing it because I wanted to, get brownie points, but I did, I know the people appreciated it. And some people are having some days, they're out there clearing debris at the university, but their house is a wreck. And so, I could see the stress levels come and go. So I can just go home. Don't even worry about us. You go home, take care of you and your family. We'll survive. We'll be here when you come back. And we didn't charge anybody any leave during that. There was a lot, you're dealing with people, so you have to have compassion and empathy. And that's one thing. And sometimes that's a learning process too. When I was a young grad student, I didn't know what the heck was going on. But as you mature and you're in these positions where you see decisions you make impacting people, you learn, okay, I better make the right decisions or the best decision. Not everybody's going to see it as the right decision, but you got to, make a decision and make that decision. But yeah, there's a lot of development and growth involved in that. And, I went through the FSLI program and I learned a lot in there and I utilized those skills to this day. Some things I was already doing, but I learned a lot more things as well. And being at a small institution, it was almost easier sometimes because you had a much closer relationship with a lot of different people. I could call the president's office. On the reverse side of that, he could call me, which, that could be good or bad, but, so, but you develop those relationships and you keep them positive, even within NIFA. I have a good working relationship with my supervisor, Cal, and I had a great relationship with Deb, his predecessor. I've known her for 20 years, so that was not a big, tough decision. But the people that work with me in the division, I've got a good relationship with them and we get along. They do their jobs well. They make my life so simple. I'll be in meetings with other division directors and they're complaining about stuff. And then they'll come around to me and go, no, everything's fine. We're just cruising along. We got good stuff going. So I don't know what the difference is, if it's because of the way my career came up through faculty, administration, and all these different things that gave me a little different perspective on things. But again, and you got to respect where everybody's coming from. Everybody has a different background and they ended up where they are, a very different path from yours in a lot of cases. And it's always interesting to hear about too. One of the division folks in my division, one of the NPLs, he used to race bicycles when he was younger. You have these random conversations. They bring these things up. He served in the military in Afghanistan as a veterinarian, talking about, when Dr. D'Souza was mentioning lobster, he said, they ate lobster all the time over there. They were provided for them. So it was just, these weird little life things you get from people just talking to them. You got to talk business and talk, the work stuff. But then you get a little personal, don't be afraid to, learn about other people and let them learn about you too. Everybody knows my scuba diving passion because my Zoom backgrounds are usually a scuba picture. And, I had a lot of comments of, you have the best background picture, because I would switch them up from the beaches, the diving and stuff. And, I'm not going to let them sit and see, the blank wall of my house. That's boring. So, yeah, a lot of it is just, we're dealing with people. I tell people, I'm just throwing money out the door, but it takes people to do that. And it takes people to ask for that money and it takes people to spend that money. So we're all working with people. The money is just the connection, but it's all people that we're dealing with. And you always got to keep that in mind and how to interact with people. Again, the golden rule, treat them like you want to be treated. But, and sometimes you got to be the bad guy. That's probably the least fun part of my job. Like when we go through budget cuts and you have to make decisions as to where that money's coming from. Travel's the easiest one to cut. And it's tough, I understand why people want to go to conferences. I want to go to some of these conferences, but we have to make decisions. And, I cut some of my travel too. I don't want to just say, well, you guys are paying for my travel. No, I try and be equitable with it. There's some things we need to do and we make sure the monies and resources are there for that. But, you share the pain and you share the glory. And probably one of the biggest things I've ever learned was you criticize in private and praise in public. If there's a problem with somebody, you have a one-on-one with them. Work it out, get it figured out. If somebody does a good job, you sing their praises in front of the whole group. And that gets everybody else knowing what a good person is, what somebody that's done well, and also gives them, okay, if I do something, I'll get this acknowledgement as well. But never criticize people in front of a bunch of other people. That's just bad. And it makes you look bad, it makes that person feel bad, and everybody else is going, look at that loser. You don't want that. It's bad for morale.
Well, before we close, I have a request for the NRES 5101 to stay 1 minute after the end of the semester of the seminar. Also, I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce, he was introduced on Tuesday, Dr. Abebe Gatan. He's a faculty professor visiting us from Ethiopia. You talk about aquaculture. He's an aquaculture specialist. He's a Fulbright scholar here. He'll be here with us until the end of February. So please, if you don't met him before, welcome him. Welcome to Prairie View again. With that, let's thank our speaker for an excellent overview of NIFA and NIFA program, and especially the nice, good experience on the Virgin Islands. So thanks a lot.
Which I still miss.